Live, local, now. This is WIS News 10.
It's not the person. I don't even think it's going to be the last. Every year, there's something going on over there.
7 inmates killed, another 17 hurt after an hours-long riot at a level 3 prison in the Midlands.
I'm never surprised when I hear that there's been a riot at Lee Central, Lee Correctional. Never. Because they are some of the worst inmates I've ever heard of.
For more than 6 hours, housing units remained unsecure as inmates fought.
I just don't understand they let it get out of control. Too many people died and got all them people injured and stuff.
Now, questions of safety remain for inmates, officers, and the public.
These are dangerous people, and they're in prison because they have been judged to be so dangerous as to be required to be kept in prison.
Your News at 6 starts right now.
Territory, contraband, and cell phones. Those things are what officials say caused a massive, deadly prison riot at Lee Correctional Institution. The hours-long riot taking place last night left 7 inmates dead, 17 others injured. Officials call it the deadliest prison riot in the U.S. in the past 25 years. And now the investigation begins into how it happened, as those who live nearby say they are very concerned.
I just don't understand they let it get out of control. Too many people died and got all them people injured and stuff like that. So somebody ain't doing something. Somebody ain't doing their job to me.
7 men all killed last night during the riot. Raymond Scott, Michael Millage, Damonte Marquez Rivera, Eddie Casey, Jay Gaskins, Joshua Jenkins, Corey Scott, and Cornelius McCleary. These men serving anywhere from 10 years to life in prison for crimes ranging from murder to burglary or trafficking cocaine. Their records show all but one had been punished before for possessing or trying to possess a cell phone.
And tonight we have team coverage looking into the investigation and your concerns. Caroline Hecker's in Bishopville gathering community reaction. Sam Blyweiss is in our studio with a look at staffing at the facility. And we begin tonight with Ashley Holland, who is at Lee Correctional Facility, with details on what happened last night. Ashley.
Donnie and Judy, although Lee Correctional Institution is a maximum security level of prison, there were violent riots last night that turned deadly that spanned hours before they could be broken up. Beyond the razor wire, the level 3 maximum security prison is meant to hold those men convicted of violent crimes serving long sentences. Although the prison claims there's close supervision on them, these 7 inmates are dead after hours-long fights broke out overnight. The men age 24 to 44, serving time for crimes from murder to burglary.
That's just crazy. It's a level 3 prison. I don't understand how they let that happen like that. I just don't understand it.
Like I said, that prison has always seemed to be a problem. There are a lot of riots out there. There's a lot of uprisings out there. They really should have the funding to have more guards.
The prison director says the first fight started at 7:15 between gangs over cell phones, but officers couldn't take back control until 11:30.
And they're outnumbered. So they're trained to back out of that dorm and call for support. And that's exactly what we believe they did last night, because support started showing up immediately.
Inmates describe a chaotic scene inside, bodies stacked, heavily injured. The photos sent to us are too graphic to show.
We gathered as many people as we could, as quickly as we could, and went in as soon as we thought it was safe for our staff.
But they were sent through a cell phone, and all but one of those inmates who died has a prison record that shows they were punished at some point for possessing or trying to possess a cell phone while in prison. Again, we have the records of those 7 inmates who were killed, the records they had while in prison, and all those details can be found on our website online. That's WISTV.com. For now, I'm live in Lee County. Ashley Holland, WIS News 10.
Well, this level 3 maximum security prison is in the tiny town of Bishopville with just 3,200 people. But are scary incidents like this recent riot leading some to consider skipping town? Our Caroline Hecker talked with some lifelong residents today. She joins us live from Bishopville with more on what they had to say. Caroline?
Well, many of the people we spoke to today have, in fact, lived here in Bishopville their entire lives, and whether it's in town or on the outskirts, they describe it as a great place to live. But like you said, over the last couple of years, the rising number of violent activities at the prison is making some of those same residents question and really think about where it is that they are raising their families. They tell me before the prison was built, it was a quiet, small town. But after hearing of the news of last night's deadly riot, they say many of those residents are uneasy.
But I'm still concerned about the people here. You know, that closer. A lot of people move from around the prison when they first start building because they're scared, you know. And with everybody, we all have that little fright in us. Pray and ask the Lord to take care of everybody.
Now, even those we spoke to who don't live in the immediate area of the prison say they're worried. They're always afraid that an inmate may escape and hide in a nearby wooded area or even get access to the nearby interstate. You'll hear more from those residents coming up at 7. Live, Caroline Hecker, WIS News 10.
Caroline, thank you. And this incident at Lee Correctional is not the first at the Level 3 prison. Less than a month ago, on March 23rd, inmates at Lee Correctional held a corrections officer hostage for an hour and a half inside a dorm. No inmates were injured. Then in February of this year, an inmate convicted of shooting a deputy in the face was found dead following a fight with other inmates. In November of last year, an inmate at the prison was found dead following a stabbing. And just months before that, in August, another inmate was found with a stab wound to the arm and later died from that. Well, including last night's riot, 10 inmates have been killed at Lee Correctional Institution in the past 9 months. These incidents are raising questions of what goes on inside that prison. Sam Blywise joins us with that and with the staffing that they face.
Yeah, there's still, this investigation is very much underway at this point. But we do know right now there were 44 officers there when that riot began in the first dorm. And then, of course, they had to wait for SLED and the response teams from across the state to respond to the prison. But those 44 officers were there when fights broke out in 3 separate dorms. And in each dorm alone, keep in mind, there are 250 to 260 inmates. Sterling says that correctional officers did exactly what they were supposed to do. They're trained to wait for backup in a situation like this. That is why it took almost 7 hours to completely subdue everyone. They worked well into the early hours of the morning. They had to wait for SLED and those responding corrections officials. Sterling also says that the fight broke out in the first dorm around 7:15. It was completely contained to that first dorm, but somehow the word spread, likely through the use of cell phones, before breaking out in 2 other dorms. Corrections officers waited for backup to be able to go in with enough force a couple of hours later to safely end that situation.
And we're going to go in and we're going to take that dorm back with force. And if there's any resistance, we will be able to put that resistance down immediately. So we're not going to put our officers and other staff in harm's way.
We do the very best we can to see that these things do not happen, and we try to minimize them and learn from them every time.
Now, Corrections Director Brian Sterling says, again, the precipitating factor here, the use of cell phones inside prison walls. He is meeting with the FCC next month to ask again for cell signals to be jammed inside correctional institutions. He is also working on getting more funding to increase that pay for corrections officers. He says, Dondi, that in recent years, the pay has actually gone up 24%. That's been a big part of what he's tried to do since he, got in charge. But the annual starting salary for a corrections officer when he got in there was $27,000 a year. So he says there is still certainly a ways to go.
And as we look at the fact that it did take a while to get in there, but again, as you pointed out, when you look at the number of people that were there, you can't just send a couple corrections officers in, not knowing what.
Right, they're going to prioritize the safety of their corrections officers and of their staff. As he told us, they're not going to send 1 or 2 officers in there to try to subdue that situation with hundreds of inmates.
All right, Sam, thank you.
We want to take a second now to go over what we have learned about this deadly prison riot so far. We know that it is a lot of information to take in, so let's just go through it line by line. First, the incident at the prison started at about 7:15 last night in that Level 3 prison, which houses some of the state's most violent offenders. It was several hours later, just before 3 a.m., when officials were finally able to get those housing units back under control. The incident involved separate altercations with inmates in 3 different housing units or dorms in that prison. When it was finally all over, 7 inmates were killed, another 17 injured, and had to be transported to an outside facility for medical treatment. No corrections officers were injured in last night's riot. We have just learned, due to a lockdown at the prison, parole hearings have been postponed this week. WIS sent you an alert on this situation. First, to your WIS News app. The information continues to develop in that investigation. Make sure you have that app on your mobile device to get news as it breaks. The app is free in your app store.
It has been a quiet and cool day, emphasis on cool.
Absolutely.
After a rough yesterday, Sunday, with some tornadoes. So Chief Meteorologist Menace Brown joining me. 3 or 4? That's what we're looking at as far as how many
exactly actually touchdowns. We do know at least 3 happened. We had 4 tornado touchdowns though. So let's talk about some of that right now with the map, and we'll show you where a lot of that happened, especially in Lexington County. Today we got confirmed that we had an EF2 tornado in Gilbert, and then this one here, an EF0 yesterday in Lexington, and then an EF1 in Irmo. This one might be the same tornado here, but we'll get confirmation from the National Weather Service either tonight or maybe even tomorrow as they look at some more of that damage in the path there. This one also confirmed by the National Weather Service in EF1 near the Ridgeway area.
Dyer Toyota is Columbia Metro's #1 volume Toyota Giant. 7 years.
I want you to see it right here. An EF0 tornado around 65 to 85 miles an hour. An EF1 tornado, how about wind speeds at 86 to 110 miles an hour? And that EF2 in Gilbert, a lot of damage there. Wind speeds up to 135 miles an hour. What a difference a day makes. We're going to talk about the cool weather on the way here in your First Alert forecast, all coming up.